The Prime Minister Narendra Modi is preparing for a meeting with the Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, and a visit follows. Prime Minister's visit to Poland, and it was a historic visit in itself. He had underscored there itself that there is a need for peace amid the escalating tensions, and once again the Prime Minister will be, of course, focusing on that message of peace amidst the war in Ukraine. I will get you the latest on that in this report.
After Prime Minister Narendra Modi's recent visit to Poland, he is all set to meet Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Modi's visit to Ukraine is primarily aimed at facilitating peace talks, reflecting India's push for a resolution amidst escalating tensions. His recent call for a return to peace highlights the urgency of his mission as he prepares for this significant engagement in Ukraine. With the war intensifying, Modi's stance remains clear. This is not the time for war. India has long been a proponent of peace, and Modi's current efforts align with this enduring commitment. During his visit to Poland, the Prime Minister once again emphasized the need for peace amidst the ongoing conflict.
साथियों, भारत बुद्ध की विरासत वाली धरती है। और जब बुद्ध की बात आती है तो जो युद्ध नहीं, शांति पर विश्वास करती है। और इसलिए भारत इस रीजन में भी स्थायी शांति का एक बड़ा पैरोकार है। भारत का मत एकदम साफ है, ये युद्ध का युग नहीं है।
This message was reinforced during his visit to Russia, where he directly urged President Vladimir Putin, saying, "Today's era is not of war."
एक्सेलेंसी, एक मित्र के नाते मैंने हमेशा कहा है कि हमारी भावी पीढ़ी के उज्ज्वल
From Ukraine, where the Prime Minister has reached, what we understand right now, though that the visuals coming in, the Prime Minister, it's a historic visit. Like it's, of course, all about deepening the ties, also about the defense ties between the two nations, defense manufacturing, India to act like a bridge of peace. That's what the Prime Minister had said during his visit while he embarked on this visit to Poland and Ukraine. And now we have visuals from Kiev. And remember, viewers, the war between Ukraine and Russia is still on. And in that background, we see the Prime Minister now arriving in Ukraine. This coming in just few weeks after he visited Russia. That was in July. He visited Moscow, and there were several reactions that had come in on that. A sharp reaction had come in from Ukraine as well. My colleague and senior executive editor Abhishek Kapoor joins us on the phone line. From Abhishek, we're getting first visuals of Prime Minister Modi's visit to Ukraine. He has reached, I believe that it was a 7 to 10 hour long journey via a train amidst the war that is going on. And of course, there's lots more lined up. It has a lot of significance given the fact that this visit comes in just few weeks after his Moscow visit.
Well, absolutely, and not 7 to 10 hours, actually 10 hours plus, Rakshita, we are told. It was a requisitioned train, so a special train, you can call it, Prime Minister 1 or train number 1. And this is the only way you can access Kyiv. You cannot fly down. And before Prime Minister, for example, President Joe Biden, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, President Emmanuel Macron, among others, Chancellor Olaf Scholz, they have all traveled to this route. And Prime Minister taking 10-hour train journey from Poland to Kiev, and in the carcade now we can see him arriving in the Ukrainian capital. He is going to be meeting President Zelenskyy. And remember, because it's a war situation, the program details are kept under wraps. and the location also secret. For example, when Rishi Sunak came, he met President Zelenskyy at the Hard Rock Cafe in Kiev and not in the presidential palace, because that's sort of a giveaway. So similarly, in the case of Prime Minister, the location and the duration of engagement and where the meeting would take place and for how long it would go, those things are being kept under wraps for now. Also, because you mentioned that Prime Minister is visiting Kiev just a month after, or less, in a little more than a month after visiting Moscow. Yes, that's very important. And in a way, it's India's message that for us, between Russia and Ukraine, it's not a zero-sum game like it is in the case of most of the Western nations. And the Prime Minister has been very clear that this is not an era of war. And so far as humanitarian assistance to Kiev is concerned, India has been sweet and upfront about whatever needs to be done has to be done, and we have been doing that. And this is a very important visit panning out, Rakshita.
Well, of course, India giving out a strong message for peace. And, Abhishek, tell us more on the, the way this is being viewed. Remember, there is peace on agenda. There is also defense on agenda. And how we've seen India has been independent as far as its approach is concerned to both the countries ever since this war broke out, ever since Russia invaded in Ukraine. We've seen there were multiple reactions that had come in, especially from the West. But despite that, India is showing that its policy remains non-aligned, it remains independent, and it can play a very important role in fact, sending that message of peace and even brokering peace.
Absolutely. And good that you mentioned, Rakshita, this word non-alignment, because traditionally India is seen as a non-aligned power. And in the Modi dispensation since 2014, the non-alignment has seen a very evolved, nuanced approach where on one hand we have strengthened our partnership, for example, with the United States. At the same time, we have not let an old ally like Russia feel as if we have abandoned them. And so similarly in the case of Europe, similarly in the case of Africa. So, for example, in the manner in which we have strongly batted for Global South, the manner in which we have, aggressively campaigned for the reforms at the United Nations, all those are appeased with a very newfound self-confidence that India is on the high table in the Global Committee of Nations. India is an influencer when it comes to global events of the day. And so when it comes to this Ukraine war, for example, the kind of clarity with which Prime Minister Modi has spoken that this is not the time to have war, you cannot solve problems and disputes in the battlefield, and that you have to go back to dialogue and diplomacy, I think nobody else has done. The Americans have not done it. The Brits have not done it. The French have not done it. Or if they have done it by way of some kind of verbal homage to peace, they have been supplying weapons to Ukraine, and they have been behaving or conducting themselves in a manner that there is no incentive for Russia to make a climb back from the state of war. So obviously, if you look at the manner in which the whole thing has panned out in Europe over the last couple of years, India has emerged as a voice of reason. Prime Minister Modi has led from the front in terms of impressing upon everyone that you cannot do war and jaw at the same time. You have to, and then you can have a dialogue, and that should be the focus. Prime Minister, in fact, interestingly, for all the panning that his visit to Moscow and his hugging President Putin got, if you do a sum total of the number of meetings Prime Minister has had with President Zelenskyy vis-a-vis President Putin, it's actually more with President Zelenskyy than Putin. And that really gives you an idea of the kind of balancing act we have done without turning this into a zero-sum game. And that's going to get reflected in the Prime Minister's visit to Kiev. Perhaps the only one of this stature and size in terms of our geostrategic heft and geoeconomic heft from the eastern part of the world, from this side of the Suez Canal, traveling to Kiev and meeting President Zelenskyy there. So all the apprehensions that the West had about India's balancing act should be put to rest with this visit of Prime Minister panning out in front of our eyes. He's going to spend more than a couple of hours, possibly 4 or 5 hours. He just arrived after a 10-hour train journey.
Right.
And after those 4 or 5 hours, he will be heading back again with that 10-hour train journey back to Poland.
Absolutely right. Of course, the historic visit, and it has its own significance. Thank you so much, Abhishek, for the moment.